The neon glow of Maverick's bar cast a hazy blue light across Jake Reynolds' weathered face as he leaned against the counter, nursing his whiskey. The United States Marine had just returned from a deployment in Southeast Asia, and the gritty downtown establishment felt like sanctuary after months of military discipline. His sharp gray eyes scanned the room with the precision of someone trained to detect threats and weaknesses in every environment. It was a habit he could never switch off, even during moments meant for relaxation. Emma Parker moved through the crowded bar with practiced grace, carrying a tray of cocktails in one hand while maintaining an easy smile that made customers feel welcomed. She wore the standard black vest and white shirt of the establishment, but there was something uniquely captivating about her presence. The way she moved suggested controlled confidence far beyond what a simple waitress typically possessed. Jake watched her approach his end of the bar, and something flickered across his consciousness, but he dismissed it as attraction, nothing more. Emma noticed the man at the bar immediately. His muscular frame, the military bearing, the way his eyes tracked movement in the room, all screamed trained operative. But his file said Marine, not Special Forces, and that was exactly what she needed him to believe. She had been undercover in this city for 4 months, tracking the movements of the Volkov Syndicate, an international smuggling operation with connections running through every layer of this town. The bar served as a front for their operations, and Emma had learned that their next major transaction would happen within days. She needed intelligence, and Jake Reynolds presented an unexpected opportunity. When she reached Jake, she set down a fresh drink and smiled warmly. "The guy at the corner table bought this one for you. He looked like he owed you money." She maintained eye contact exactly long enough to seem flirtatious but not desperate, watching his reaction with the trained eye of someone who understood human psychology. Jake grinned at her, and she felt a genuine flutter of something she had trained herself to suppress for years. They talked for the next hour, Emma skillfully steering conversation toward his military background, his connections downtown, his knowledge of local operations. Jake found himself completely disarmed by her charm and apparent genuine interest. He revealed more than he intended about his relationships with various community leaders and his plans to start a security consulting business that would involve private clients throughout the city. Every word he spoke was exactly what Emma needed. As the night deepened, the bar grew louder and more chaotic. Emma excused herself to work, but not before their fingers brushed as she took his empty glass. The touch felt electric, and neither of them expected that reaction. Emma returned to her handler through a private bathroom on the back patio, delivering the intelligence she had gathered, but her mind kept returning to Jake's crooked smile and his surprisingly gentle voice beneath the rough Marine exterior. Jake ordered one more drink and realized for the first time in years he wanted to see someone again, not for conquest or companionship, but because something about Emma Parker had cracked through his carefully constructed walls. He did not know that she was the most dangerous person in this bar. He did not know she had disabled 3 trained operatives in the past 6 months. He did not know she was about to turn his entire world upside down. What Jake Reynolds underestimated was not just Emma's capability, but the vulnerability that comes with letting someone close when your entire existence is built on secrets and lies. Jake returned to Mavericks 3 nights in a row. Each time Emma was there, and each time they shared more of themselves. He learned she grew up in Colorado, had a photography hobby, and dreamed of opening a small bookstore someday. She learned he was stationed locally, that his father was a police officer, and that beneath his tough exterior lived someone yearning for genuine human connection. They fell into easy conversation, as if they had known each other for years rather than days. Emma told herself this was necessary for the operation, that building trust with Jake would make him more forthcoming about his security consulting contacts. But the truth gnawed at her with each conversation. Each laugh they shared, each moment their hands touched, arranging glasses on the bar, Each time she caught herself watching his face when he thought she was not looking, felt like a betrayal of her training and her mission. She had been taught that emotional attachment was a liability, that it clouded judgment and endangered lives. Yet, with Jake, she found herself caring about his safety in ways that transcended operational necessity. On the fourth night, Emma arrived at work to find two suspicious men at a corner table. She recognized them immediately as members of the Volkov operation. The transaction was happening sooner than expected, and these men were clearly here to assess the location and the security arrangements. Emma went through her usual routine while covertly documenting their movements and communications through a hidden device in her ear. She heard her handler, Marcus, give her updates. The smuggling shipment would arrive the following night at the warehouse district, and she needed to be there. Jake arrived at his usual time, unaware of the danger that had just walked through the same doors. Emma felt her pulse quicken when he entered. The presence of Volkov operatives and Jake's arrival created a dangerous convergence. She watched as one of the men glanced at Jake with casual interest, and she felt ice flood through her veins. If they decided Jake was a threat, or if they recognized him as military, the situation could explode into violence. Emma made a decision that violated every protocol she had been taught. She excused herself and texted Jake a message from the bar phone, telling him to leave immediately without drawing attention. She watched as he read the message, confusion crossing his face, but trusting her enough to comply. He left within minutes, and Emma felt simultaneous relief and fear. She had protected him, but she had also revealed that she was aware of danger beyond what a waitress should know. Later that night, after her shift ended, Emma met Marcus in an underground parking garage. "We have a problem," she said. "Jake Reynolds saw my reaction to those operatives. He knows something is wrong." Marcus studied her with the dark intensity of a seasoned intelligence professional. "You are compromised," he said flatly. "We need to pull you out before this gets worse." Emma shook her head firmly. "The operation is 72 hours from completion. I can manage this." But even as she spoke, she knew she was lying. The moment she prioritized Jake's safety over her mission, she had already lost control of the situation. She had become exactly what her training warned against, emotionally invested, which meant she was now a liability to herself and everyone she worked with. Jake could not stop thinking about Emma's cryptic message, the urgency in her text, the way she had looked at those men with sudden awareness that transcended casual concern. For days, he wrestled with the question of what she actually was. He returned to Mavericks, but she was not there. The following night, she appeared, but their interactions felt strained, forced. Emma maintained professional distance while her eyes betrayed something deeper, something fractured by internal conflict. On the evening of the warehouse operation, Emma prepared herself mentally and physically. She wore tactical gear beneath street clothes and carried weapons that a waitress should never possess. She had spent 4 months establishing credibility in this undercover role, and tonight, everything would culminate. The Volkov shipment contained trafficking documents, evidence of money laundering, and worst of all, proof of human exploitation across 3 continents. Emma knew stopping this operation would save lives, but she also knew the cost would be personal and irreversible. Marcus had made it clear that she needed to disappear after the operation. She could not return to her old life, could not maintain contact with anyone who might recognize her, which included Jake Reynolds. The thought created a physical ache in her chest. She had allowed herself to imagine impossible scenarios over the past days, scenarios where she could somehow exist in both worlds. But field operatives did not get happy endings. They got successful missions and hollow victories. Jake decided to follow Emma after her shift. That night, he sat in his truck outside Mavericks, watching her leave. The moment she stepped into the shadows, away from the streetlights, her entire demeanor transformed. Her posture straightened, becoming predatory, her movements economical and precise. She shed the waitress persona like a costume. She spoke urgently into a hidden communicator, and Jake realized with stunning clarity that he had been completely wrong about who Emma Parker actually was. She was not defenseless. She was not an innocent girl with dreams of a bookstore. She was a trained operative of some kind. Jake followed her through the industrial streets toward the warehouse district. He kept a distance that his Marine training had taught him to maintain.
His instinct screamed that he was about to witness something dangerous and classified, and that his presence here was deeply unwise. Yet he could not turn back, because somewhere beneath the betrayal and shock lived the desperate need to understand Emma, to save her if she needed saving, or to be saved by her if that was what the night required. When Jake finally saw the warehouse and the armed operatives surrounding it, his blood went cold. This was organized crime. This was federal-level dangerous, and Emma was walking directly into the center of it, wearing tactical gear and carrying a weapon with the confidence of someone who had done this dozens of times before. Jake whispered her name, even though she could not hear him, but the words felt necessary, as if speaking her name would somehow anchor her to the world he knew and draw her back from whatever dark mission she was about to execute. She had not told him the truth, but standing in that moment, watching her prepare to engage armed criminals, Jake understood that whatever Emma was doing, it mattered more than their fragile connection. It mattered more than the future they might have shared, and that realization broke something inside him.
Emma moved through the warehouse with lethal precision. She had trained for this moment thousands of times in scenarios designed to prepare her for exactly this kind of operation. The Volkov operatives never saw her coming. She disabled the first two guards silently, efficiently, without hesitation. Her handler, Marcus, provided real-time intelligence through her earpiece, coordinating with federal agents positioned outside. Marcus told her the shipment was in the eastern storage room, and the operation was go. But then, everything changed. Jake emerged from the shadows, and his presence shattered Emma's ability to compartmentalize her feelings. One moment of distraction nearly cost him his life. A guard spotted him and opened fire, screaming. Emma instinctively moved, placing her body between Jake and the gunfire. The bullet grazed her shoulder, and she felt the sharp burn of impact, but adrenaline overrode the pain. She eliminated the threat with brutal efficiency while simultaneously processing that Jake had somehow found her. "Get down," she commanded, and for once Jake obeyed without question. She cleared the building with Jake behind her, every movement calculated to protect him, while also completing her mission. This was the compromise she had been dreading, the place where personal attachment and professional obligation collided. The operation succeeded. The Volkov network was dismantled, the evidence was secured, and Jake Reynolds had become a liability that could not be undone. When they finally emerged outside, federal agents swarmed the location. Helicopters circled overhead, and the night erupted into controlled chaos. Marcus appeared, and Emma could see the calculation in his eyes. He was assessing whether Jake needed to be disappeared, whether he represented a security threat. Emma stepped forward. "He stays with me." That was not protocol. That was not even possible. But Emma was past caring about protocol. At a secure facility hours later, Jake finally got his answers. Emma sat across from him in a concrete room that smelled of bleach and metal. She told him everything, about the Special Forces training, about the undercover operation, about the Volkov syndicate. She explained that she had violated every regulation by protecting him, that she had compromised the mission by choosing his life over operational integrity. Eyes glistening. "I am sorry," she said, and her voice cracked in a way that revealed the girl beneath the warrior. "I was supposed to be just a mission. I was supposed to feel nothing." Jake reached across the table and took her hand, understanding for the first time that her sacrifice was greater than his own. She had given up her career, her identity, her entire future by saving him in that warehouse. Emma Parker, as she was, would cease to exist. The woman across from him would become someone new, someone without a home, without a history, without a past. He understood that love, in its truest form, often meant losing everything. The federal agency offered Emma 3 options: witness protection, relocation under a new identity, continued service in a different capacity, or complete civilian discharge with financial compensation. Marcus presented these choices with clinical detachment, but Emma could see the question in his eyes, wondering if she would choose the career she had sacrificed everything to build. She turned to Jake. "I choose you." Jake felt those 3 words reverberate through his entire being, not metaphorically, but literally. Physically, they changed the trajectory of everything. He had joined the Marines because he needed purpose and control. Emma had become an operative for the same reasons. Both of them had built their identities around duty and mission. But standing in that moment, facing each other, they realized that purpose could be found in another person, that control was an illusion, and the greatest mission was learning to love without fear. Within 6 months, Emma and Jake opened a private security consulting firm that bore no resemblance to either of their previous lives. Emma brought tactical expertise and strategic thinking, while Jake contributed his Marine connections and business acumen. The company thrived because it was built on authentic partnership rather than hidden agendas. They took clients in corporate security, threat assessment, and protective services, all of which allowed Emma to use her skills without the deception that had nearly destroyed her. One evening, as they worked late in their office, Emma stood at the window looking out over the city lights, smiling softly. "I spent so many years being invisible," she said. "I was taught that emotions were weaknesses, that attachment was dangerous, that the mission was all that mattered. But the real mission was always finding you. It took me losing everything to understand that the most important operations are the ones we undertake in our hearts." Jake came behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist, resting his chin on her shoulder. "I spent years reading people, analyzing situations, trusting my instincts to spot danger, but I completely missed the obvious, that the most dangerous thing in my life would be the best thing that ever happened to me." Laughing, "I nearly got myself killed following you to that warehouse." They held each other as the city breathed around them, 2 warriors who had learned that vulnerability was not weakness, 2 strategists who had discovered that the best plans often came from the heart, 2 people who had been trained to survive, instead learned to live. Emma closed her eyes and for the first time in her adult life felt completely at peace, not because her circumstances were safe, but because she was safe with him. "Thank you for saving me," she whispered. Jake kissed the top of her head and replied, "You saved me first. I just finally caught up."